Welcome back to NTheRealestWay podcast by Marqes Smith, where we talk about so many topics in the realest way. On this podcast episode, I want to talk about the aftermath of the attack. Last week's podcast episode and the week after that podcast episode, we talked about mental health and the impact that it had in our lives. I expressed outwardly to the world, to the people who listen to my podcast, about how much I was dealing with internally, the conflicts that I didn't want to talk about. I thought those things were, that there was something that was put in the past and it no longer affected who I was today because it didn't matter. But it truly mattered. And once I took the time to be vulnerable and put myself in a position where this podcast, it could move towards healing, that's when my life started to change. And that's what this one is about, the aftermath of the attack. Right? I had a mental crisis. I've been having a mental crisis for the longest time. But once I really sat down and I went through the mental crisis, this is what this podcast is about, the aftermath. This episode is about the aftermath of the attack that I went through. If you didn't listen to that podcast episode, go back. But if you didn't and you don't want to go back, but please do, okay? I'm going to explain why this is so important. At a young age, I was molested by my cousin. And I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to go through it. I didn't want to say that this actually happened to me. Because who says and who really wants to admit, I would rather it have been a dream. I would rather have been some kind of illusion and some kind of story I told myself at a young age, but it didn't. It wasn't that. It was the truth. It was reality. And I wanted to shun it. I wanted to hide it. I wanted to push it away. Now that I'm in a state of my life where I can't just push it away, it's something that needs healing. It needs attention. It needs time to go through. That's when everything changed. A lot of stuff changed, right? Internally, externally, people around me. And before I really get into the topic, I remember of recent time when all of my relatives, everybody was texting me, oh, I didn't know this happened. I didn't know this happened, right? I really appreciate all of the outward expression of a situation that happened years and years ago, right? We have to understand that, yes, you took the time to say how you felt about it right now. But it's been years and years and years, and I've dealt with it for years and years and years, and it's been affecting me for quite some time. And also about that in regards to family members, and not just family members, people around you who were around you when something traumatic happened to you, they find a way to where they don't want to implement themselves. Right? I'm not saying every family member did this, but there were times when I was texting a relative and it was like, well, this happened around this time and I was there and I didn't know about this, or I didn't know that it happened this way, or they were trying to get details to where instead of actively trying to deal with the traumatic experience as they should, as a person who is dealing with trauma, they wanted to find their way into a situation to where they weren't implemented. Instead of worrying about what presently is going on, they want to go back into the past and try to find an excuse to why this happened around them or it didn't happen around them. What's the details? When did it happen? Where was it at? Instead of actually going through with this person about the traumatic experience. I've already lived a traumatic experience numerous times in my head. We've already gone through it internally. We don't need to explain ourselves. We need help. We need people around us who we can talk to. And this just goes to show in the podcast topic about mental health that sometimes we don't have safe places where we can go to talk to people. And then when we outwardly express it, it's something to where like, well, why didn't we talk about this? Well, why didn't we go? What was I supposed to do? What are people supposed to do when they're dealing with a traumatic experience from people who don't care about what they're saying? That is the entire conversation about mental health. We get to a point where we're adults and we think that this no longer implements us no more. We don't have to listen to this way of going about life. It doesn't matter anymore. You were abused as a child, physically assaulted as a child, and everything that you did when you were younger, it turned into something differently. You never learned your lesson from physical abuse. Now you're an adult and now you're doing the same things. Generational trauma, generational cycles. We're all dealing with something that is traumatic. The issue and the problem is we don't know the right tools and the places to go. And once we get to those places with those tools and we move towards healing and we're not hiding it anymore. The people who are dealing with this trauma, especially at this age of this generation, my generation, we're not hiding anymore. We were sexually assaulted. We were molested. We're going to talk about it and we're going to go through it and we're going to deal with it because it's our lives. And nobody, no matter how much people think that they can do something and change something, it already happened. The trauma has already been implemented. It is inside of me. Now, the best thing that I can do is move towards healing for myself. And I can't get that healing necessarily from other people directly. This has to be something that I go through internally and really deal with. If you went through something traumatic and you're looking for something to come and just save you, just take away all the pain, it's not going to happen. God is going to give you tools. God is going to give you things that can move you towards healing, right? And people can do that too. But it takes you. You are the person. You are the thing that is going to do your healing, cause your healing, trigger your healing, move towards growth. You. And there was a point in my life where I was so angry. I was so angry all the time. I didn't realize how much energy it took to be so angry, to be so mad, to lash out. I don't want to be that way no more. So now there's a time, right, where the people who truly didn't know, they're angry, right? They're angry about something that happened and they couldn't do anything about it. Yet I was experiencing this anger for years and years and years. And now I came to a point where you expect me to be angry. You expect me to revert back into who I was before. But I've already healed. I'm healing from it. I can't go back. I go back. I'm back who I was before I left and I was with y'all. I can't go back. I can't be angry anymore. Not about that. It consumes me and it takes apart everything that I'm creating right now. This podcast, the life that I have. I know it's not perfect, but this is what I've been working towards. And if you want me to go back, you want me to revert back into who I was, I'm going to lose everything that I have right now. Everything that God and myself and everything that we work towards to move towards healing, all that would have amounted to nothing. Nothing. And it really goes to show, like, after I made the mental health podcast episode, God, I tell you, it all aligns together. I'm always learning lessons from God and everything in this podcast and with my life. It all intertwines into something beautiful. And I never know what's going to happen until it's at the end of it. Like the lessons and everything I'm going through, I never really learn about it until I actually sit back and I'm saying, well, God, you actually did this. You actually got me to a point where I didn't know where I could be. And the first section I want to talk about in terms of the aftermath of the attack is the different sections, right? The first section, the second section, the third section, where it was spiritual, mental, and physical. All those attacks. Of course, I'm already have went through it, right? But I don't think people realize that, yes, the experience was very traumatic, but the thing that is really draining, the hardest thing that I had to do in terms of healing from trauma was the aftermath of the attack. The things I had to do, the healing I had to do, all of that self-work, that was the hardest thing. Of course, experiencing the traumatic experience was horrible, right? Who wants to go through that? But really dissecting it and going about it and learning and talking to yourself about it and trying to heal, that is the hardest thing to do, because you're constantly reliving these moments. You're constantly like, was it me? Was I the problem? Was I the one who it's happened because of me? That was the hardest thing that I had to do, the aftermath. Spiritually, I was tested. God tested me. I lost faith numerous times because I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I could trust God. Is God real? What's up there? What is protecting me? Why do I see all these people suffering? Going through things that I went through, a billion times worse. They went through things that I could never even imagine of going through. Like, why is this something that is being tested? Why is it something that I'm going through? Like, why is my spirituality, why is my religion being tested so much? It was one of the hardest things I had to go through. Asking God for answers and for help and not receiving anything. But the more I went through this, the more I went through these lessons and these trials and everything that I was working towards, the sooner and the easier it was to realize that God was preparing me for something that was bigger and better than I ever dreamed it could be. I don't care how long it takes for my potential and for my, not even my potential, for who I am to be seen by the world. I'm already seen by God. I've already been through all these experiences and all these things, all this stuff that is making me into the person that I need to be right now. I'm leveling up. I'm doing all that stuff. You know those video games where like you start at the bottom, then you go to the top. I'm getting these right here. I'm getting this armor, this inventory, this sword. I'm getting stronger. I'm learning this. I'm learning that. Oh, I can't do this, but I can do it that way. Oh, I can't do that at all, but I can do this all the time. I'm learning that there's certain things that God is preparing me for. And if I was to go with nothing to boss level 100, I wouldn't make it. So that was something I had to go through spiritually. I was tested. I mean, tested. There were days where I was like, okay, I don't want nothing to do with God. He ain't did nothing but cause me grief and agony. I don't want nothing to do with him. And God was like, okay, I'm gonna still be here regardless, right? I'm gonna still be here. It's not stopping me. It's not stopping me from coming. God is not going to stop. No matter how much you push God away, when you're going through spiritual warfare, when you're going through trauma, God is not going to leave your side. That's what I had to learn. And in terms of mentally, one thing about me, I don't know if this is anybody else, but when I'm going through something mentally exhausting, best believe that I'm physically being tested too. I'm mentally tired. I'm going through something. I'm physically tired. It all aligns together in those ways where when I was mentally tested with my anger, I was so angry. I can't, like, the amount of times I can just remember, like, my anger definitely outweighs all of the joyous times I had when I was younger. I had amazing experiences, right? Beautiful, beautiful experiences with people that I will never forget. But there were so many times when I would relive it. I'm like, I was angry 90% of the time. Maybe it wasn't outwardly, it was internally, but I was angry. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the tools. I was frustrated and I couldn't go home and say, hey, this is what's going on, because I didn't feel like it was safe. And that's the truth. I don't feel like it was safe. I didn't feel like I could have honest conversations. I didn't feel like that. So what's the next thing to do? What do we move towards when that is the issue? I spent my entire life angry. And it's not until I came into the army, when I moved out of the space that I was in, and I could outwardly see that this was not the only tool I had to resort to. I didn't have to resort to anger and violence. I can pray. I could ask for healing. I could do the internal work. I didn't have to go through that mental crisis anymore. That's when I made this podcast, and that's when God called me to talk about something that was meaningful. And of course, like I said, the third section about the physicality of it all. We don't realize that everything, just because it's mental or it's physical, it doesn't need attention. I remember I was listening to Dr. Anita. I think that's her name. And she's an amazing. When she speaks about God, it is something that is so beautiful. I just love listening to her talk. She is so intelligent, such a beautiful, beautiful woman, right? She was talking about how we believe that all this stuff about medicine and healing and stuff, it's only this way or that way. It's only physical. It's only mental. We don't realize that we're tested in all ways. God is testing us in all. It's not just, I'm getting tested mentally. God can test you physically. What are you doing for your body? What are you eating on a daily basis? The aftermath of the attack. I was dealing with something very traumatic after this whole incident with mental health, right? Everything was aligning together with God. I was going through something traumatic that was in no way related. I guess maybe passively or maybe indirectly related, but directly it was not related. And I was physically exhausted. I had to exert myself so much because I had no choice to. And it all aligned together. The mental, the spiritual, the physical, it all aligned together. We think that it doesn't coincide. We think that one thing or this thing doesn't matter. We don't want to put attention to it. I was dealing with something that was mentally draining me. And the only way that I found how to solve this grief, this emotions, the only way I knew how to fix it was to go out and indulge myself in overeating, because I don't have sex anymore. I don't drink anymore. So I had to find tools to cope with this pain and this stress I was going under. I didn't know what else to do. Currently, the aftermath of the attack, I've already dealt with the mental crisis of it all directly. Now I'm going through it indirectly, passively. And it's still affecting me right now. The mental is affecting my physical. And it really shows that sometimes how you appear to be sometimes displays how you feel internally. Right? You don't like how you look. You're unhappy with yourself. And now you're overeating. You're increasing how you feel 10 times fold. Everything aligns, and it's about intention. And when every day I realize that intention is everything, I'm so happy that I can see it now. I can actually literally look at it like, oh, okay, that's intention. When you do something, what's the intention behind it? Oh, you did that. Like, I don't care how small it is. I'm actively trying to be intentional with everything I do. And I promise you, it's not easy. It's not easy to be intentional. It's not easy to not want to erupt into a volcano every 5 minutes. Sometimes it's hard to do that. But when I start thinking about intention and being intentional, it is something that is beautiful. It is amazing. Being intentional. And when I say be intentional, don't be intentional with being malicious, right? Move towards healing. Being intentional with love. You might not get there tomorrow. You may not get there next week. But what are we moving towards? Are we moving towards a better future for not just ourselves, but for other people? We live together. We work together. This is our family, whether you want to admit it or not. We're all people. We're all going through life differently, but together. That's beautiful. You're going through this. I'm going through that. Let's come together. Let's make something beautiful. And there's some days where I'm like, okay, I don't even like y'all. Y'all human beings, y'all get on my nerves, okay? I ain't got nothing to say to you. Why are you talking to me, okay? There's days I'm like, just leave me alone. But that's mental. That's mental crisis, right? I don't want to be bothered with people. I don't want to go. There's days when I just want to be alone. Sometimes I don't want to talk. And that goes to honesty, setting boundaries and being honest about what you want and what you will allow in your life right now in the current space. I made a video on Instagram and I distributed it, of course, over social medias, but I specifically was talking about how sometimes we don't have the mental capacity anymore to hold certain things. When we talk about the aftermath of the attack, of going through traumatic experiences, mental health crisis, we don't realize that sometimes we can't hold everything that we had before. You could hold 10 things in your hand. Now, I can only hold 2, maybe 1. Sometimes we have to evaluate our mental capacity. There was this thing, I don't know if it was Dr. Anita, but it was somebody I was listening to, and every day, I think it was her. She said she would wake up, and the first thing she would ask herself was, how am I feeling? Like, she would do a visual scan of her brain from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. What am I going through? Like, how am I feeling? Okay. Ooh, my chest hurts, right? There's something internally going on with my chest. And I don't remember what she said specifically, but it was like in certain ways it was affecting like her mental capacity. Or, it was my stomach. Oh, something's wrong with me, my stomach. Something's mentally, it wasn't actually physical. Of course it was physical, but like, anyway, it was a spiritual thing that Dr. Anita, if you want to listen to her, she is well more educated than me. Okay. She knows what she's talking about. But anyway, yes, I love referring to people who I have inspiration to be like, to become like. Educated people who are moving towards healing, not just for themselves, but for other people. And it's something beautiful. I know I say it all the time, but I love it. I love it. I love it. I really like to absorb those kind of people. Sarah Jakes Robert, Tabitha Brown, B. Simone, Megan Ashley, Dr. Anita. I love all those people. I really aspire to have a life that is moving towards what they have. in my own way, but moving towards what they have, because they're all going in the direction of healing. There's no denying that. All moving towards healing. It may be different. Their beliefs and stuff may not align exactly, but they're moving towards healing. And that is the beautiful thing about it. And I loved it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So when we talk about the aftermath of the attack, it is most definitely related to everything that you're going through right now. Something that happened when you were 2 years old can be affecting you right now. You may not just remember. There's this test that they do at therapy, I believe, where they let you sit down and you replay every event. Maybe you may remember that you were wearing a red shirt that day of that traumatic experience, and you will keep reliving that certain thing over and over until you remember more of your memories, because your body doesn't want you to go through these traumatic experiences, because it affects you physically. I was affected physically from these experiences, from this attack. And there was this test that was done that showed that when you go through emotional distress, you could actually break and you could die. Your heart could just snap and just break, and you could literally just die from mental distress, mental exhaustion, like going through something tough. You could break from that. And we think they don't align together. We think they don't work together. That doesn't make any sense. I know this is something this is so difficult for me. I know there's certain times in my life where, like, I'm driving on this dark road and I can see a couple blocks ahead of me. I can see what's going on sometimes. I don't know what's going on right now, but I know that this is something that needs to be talked about. And I don't care how uncomfortable it makes people who it had nothing to do with, how it makes them feel. I don't care that you feel uncomfortable that I was molested when I was 6 or 7 years old. I don't care. I don't care if you think it didn't happen this way. I don't care if you didn't think it was this way or that way. I don't care. I'm healing from it. This is me. This is about me. This is something I'm going through. When we talked about mental health, and I was talking to Travis about it, and he was saying that, yes, this is something that you go through, but you could also apply it to other people, like your children, or they could be going through something that was traumatic, and it could help them. And I was like 100%, but also remember that this experience needs to be something that you learn from. It's not for somebody else to take. It's something that you need to really allow to go through you. Like go through it. You got to go through it. You can't go around it. You can't go under it. You can't try to get away from it. Do that little Missy Elliott. You can't do all that, honey. You got to go through it. Directly go through it. Experience the emotions, everything. Ooh, I'm angry. I'm sad. I feel disconnected. Feel those emotions. Understand why you're feeling that way, and then move towards healing. Right? You feel like you can't talk to your family. Why is that? Why do you feel like you can't talk to your family? Okay, well, this happened and this happened. So what are we going to do about it? Every day, intention, ask yourself these questions. And I promise you, it is mentally exhausting to actively be intentional about what you think and how you feel. That is exhausting. That is literally exhausting. But it is so important that we do that. It is so important. We need to do that. And I don't know, that's the main thing I wanted to talk about, the mental health about it, the aftermath of the attack. Oh my goodness, I'm still going through it right now. It all flows together, and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to heal from it. It's my responsibility to go through it and heal from it. I know I need to. So yeah, I know I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I just going through a lot right now. It's okay to go through a lot. It's okay to go through a lot. We don't have to be so scared about what's going on and what's happening. We don't have to try to drink our problems away to anything. Like we need to go through it. Let's stop using temporary solutions to things that are going to affect us until we take our last breath. Okay? Let's stop doing that. Yeah. Oh no, I'm on 25 minutes, honey. Girl, this thing need to be a little longer, okay? I'm gonna try to push it, right? But God didn't call me to say, I don't know, God, you better use me, God, please, okay? Because I don't know what to talk about right now. But I guess I can do a little conclusion, honey, a little description of what I said, and maybe it'll trigger me to have some other thing that God wants me to talk about, because I know this ain't the end of this podcast episode. So I can go back and replay some things, honey, okay? Mental health. Going through the mental health situation, going through something that is traumatic. You experienced it. Now it's time to heal from it. However long it takes, no matter how exhausting it is, go through it. And I promise you, you have to be very intentional. You have to pay attention to everything that you're going through, because it affects you mentally, spiritually, and physically. It all coincides. It all coexists. It all goes together. It intertwines together. You think it doesn't matter? I promise you it does. I promise you it does. Also, I want to get to a point where this podcast is something where we have meaningful conversations with real life people. I've had Travis on this podcast, but I want so many more people to have honest conversations with me. And I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to become successful. This is something that is a part of my purpose, but it's not all of my purpose. And I'm really grateful. I'm so thankful. I don't know when this is going to be, big, but I'm grateful for what it is and where I'm going right now. I really am. Today I got to go through something that is mentally, physically exhausting. I have a week left. I already had a week of it already. And it's hard. It's frustrating, but it's a part of discipline. It's a part of moving towards something that is different. Like I'm at some point I need to accept it. And that's where I can start using it in a way to where I can use it for other people. But I can't speak about something that I haven't fully learned about myself, if that makes sense. So I just need to go through this lesson of being physically exhausted, and it's affecting me mentally. Because after I did that podcast about mental health with Travis, and I went out and I had to experience life again differently, and all these things were happening where I was mentally being attacked from every angle. In case you didn't know, when you mentally get attacked, your health, your immune system loses its defenses, right? You're vulnerable to being sick. I didn't get sick until after I dealt with very, very tough things. I was in a mental crisis, and that's when I got sick. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, and it's stuffy, but that's when I was mentally, and that's the important thing. Like, that's why I keep saying it. Mental health. You mentally can make yourself physically sick. It all goes together. I promise you. Please do that self-work. I don't want to see another person losing their life because they didn't be intentional, or they felt like they couldn't talk to anybody. They couldn't go through life. They couldn't have honest conversations. If you can't talk to anybody, you can talk to me. I don't care who you is. You could be a stranger. Don't walk up on me, because I just don't know about that walk up on me, right? But just I'm really to a point where, like, I want to help people. I want to heal people. I want us to grow. I want us to learn and experience life together. I don't want to see people suffering anymore. I'm tired of it. You go on your phone, you see people suffering. And that's like something that we have to go through. We have to understand that we're in a place, I said it before, we're in a place of privilege where we're not going through what somebody else is going through. So let's be the people to speak about it. Let's speak about it. Let's move towards healing, all of us. Because if you're not actively doing that, you're literally doing the opposite. If you're not actively moving towards solving an issue, you're one of the reasons why it's not being solved. Let's not shut our mind off in any aspect. Let's not educate. Let's not educate ourselves. Okay, educate yourself. Learn why this happens and what's triggering this and what's in every aspect. Please, I promise you, it is It is something that we have to do. The world is not going to change until we, as a group of people, decide for it to change. That's the only way. This podcast episode gonna be a little shorter than the rest of them because I'm not finna just drain the hell out of this podcast for no reason, right? I've already said my piece. God has already said this is what you needed to say. That's it. I have a long day ahead of me in a week, but it's about discipline. I'm gonna go through it with discipline. I'm gonna move towards healing, and that's all I can do. So like I say at the end of every podcast episode, I give thanks to the utmost, to the highest power, God. I'm thankful for my friends and my family. I'm thankful for the viewers, the listeners of this podcast. I'm truly, truly grateful. By the way, stay tuned for more from me. After I go through this difficult spot in my life and I overcome it, I'm going to start vlogging more. I'm going to start doing a lot of things that I was physically not able to do. But I'm really grateful. I really am. This is NTheRealestWay podcast. Out.